Okay, so just a quick video. I've just bought the paper this morning, and there's an article in there with regards to Simon Crowcroft's announcement of a planned hire cycle scheme, which they're calling Simon Cycles. And the idea is that there would be stations dotted around where you would be able to swipe your credit card, pick up a bike, and cycle it around to wherever you wanted to go, whatever you want to do with it, and then you drop it off at another station and I guess swipe your card again, say you've returned it. So these sorts of schemes operate already in places like London and Paris, which are big cities. Let's just get that out there. They're big cities, okay? My first question is this island-wide? It wasn't really made that clear, and perhaps it is, I don't know. But is this island-wide? If so, how many stations are we going to have in each parish? And would you have more stations or bigger stations with more bikes for the parishes with more people in, I suppose? Or for parishes such as St. Juan, would you have more stations dotted around because it's quite a big parish, and to just, if you went with the idea of, say, just put them at the parish hall, it could be quite a hike just to get to the parish hall in St. Juan's. Also, there is the question of redistribution, and what I mean by that is, if everyone's taking the bikes from the parishes and bringing them into town, there's no guarantee that they will return to the parishes they came from. So would there be some system, say at the end of each day someone goes around and redistributes the bikes to make sure there's enough bikes in each parish or at each station? Also, would the bikes be cheaper than the bus? Because I think that would be quite a deciding factor for some people. If it's not a lovely day, and so you're umming and ahhing as to whether to use the bike or not, the price could be the influencing factor. If you have to pay twice as much to use the bike as you would to catch the bus, you're probably just going to go with the bus option. Also, are these bikes going to be maintained? Who's going to maintain them? Because the last thing that you're going to want to do is be cycling a bike from Gorey into town if it's rusty, the tyres are flat, the gears don't change properly, it skips gears, the brakes squeak, all that sort of stuff. You know, they've got to be properly maintained if you want people to actually use them. So that's if it's an island-wide scheme. Well, the maintenance thing regardless, but that's my island-wide sort of points. If you're just concentrating on town, so just St. Helier, then I have to ask the questions, is St. Helier town big enough to warrant this? Because as everyone's very familiar, there are a lot of one-way systems in town which make journeys in cars or on bikes a lot longer than they need to be, and often it's actually a lot quicker just to walk to wherever you're going. I certainly found that with various jobs I've had. I always find it's quicker just to walk than it is to cycle. So if it's in town, how many stations will there be in town? And how far apart will these stations be? Because if they're too few and far between, it's definitely going to be quicker just to walk. Because otherwise you're going to have to walk to the station to get the bike, then cycle it to the other station, and then walk from that station to wherever you want it to go. And like I say, if they're too far between, it's just going to be quicker to walk anyway. Bearing in mind, you can pretty much walk from one end of town to the other in 20 minutes. Also, how many bikes would you actually be able to put at a certain station? Because if I cycled, say for example, to the Weybridge and there's a station there, and there's only slots for 10 bikes, and all 10 bikes are there, what do I do with my bike? Do I have to take it to a different station, or you know, what happens in that situation? Also, if I've hired a bike for, say I've hired it for the day, I'm planning to do a lot of bits and bobs in and around town, how do I lock it up? Because I assume I'd have to take a lock with me in order to lock it up in certain places, or I'd have to keep finding stations to return it and then have to go and get it again, which then goes back to my thing of how many are there and how far away are they. Will there be bikes made available for children? If so, will there also be helmets made available to children? Because obviously you can't have kids riding bikes without helmets. So that's another question. And also the redistribution. Will someone go at the end of the day and put the bikes back so there's at least, you know, a certain number of bikes in the north of town and the south of town and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really my main issues with this scheme. I just think my overall thing is town is too small for it to be a viable option. Town is too small and there are too many one-way systems. It's just quicker to walk, I find. So just to prove my point, and I might be going a little bit over the top here, but I've had a bit of spare time on my hands. So in here there's a quote: if you are in the north of town, for example near the town park, and you needed to get to the hospital, it can actually be quite a long journey. So I think the town park, you're referring to the Millennium Park. If I'm wrong in that, then my point still applies, I think, but I've done it from Millennium Park to the hospital. So here's the quickest journey according to Google Maps to walk that journey, and you'll see they say it takes 10 minutes, 800 meters, 10-minute walk. Okay, so that's from Millennium Park to the hospital. If you decide to cycle that, you have to obviously abide by the one-way systems, which means the quickest way I could find, because there was quite a few journeys came up going down one-way streets for some reason, but the quickest actual journey was this one I've highlighted here, and that says that it takes 4 minutes. Okay, so you think, alright, great, so I've saved 6 minutes, but that's assuming that you were already at Gas Place or at Millennium Park and you already had the bike and ready to go. So if you're anywhere other than already at the station, you've obviously got the time to walk to the station. Then you've also got to consider the fact that walking, you don't need to worry about traffic or traffic lights. So here's the same journey with the traffic lights and crossings put in. And I haven't included obviously giveways at junctions and stuff like that, but here's just the traffic lights. So you've got to add that as a factor. If there's busy traffic, if you get caught at the traffic lights, etc., that's going to slow you down. So I think, like I say, once you've got to the station, you've got the bike, you've got ready to go, you've stopped all the traffic lights and crossings and whatnot, and you've gone through all the one-way systems, I think that's easily 10 minutes, isn't it? Easily. So that's just my example there, that I just don't see how it can be quicker than walking. That being said, I guess for tourists, just wanting to pop around town, yeah, okay, fine, that probably works. But then we already have people doing that, don't we? As Zebra hire, do they not hire bikes out to tourists? And that brings me to another point. Simon Crowcroft here said that he has approached a local bank for funding for this project. Well, what about the local companies that already make a living from hiring bikes to tourists and to local people, I guess? How come they've not been approached first? Wouldn't that be the first place to go and say, look, would you like to provide it, considering that this system's probably going to eat up a lot of your business? Would you like to actually be the people doing it? I think that would be a much better approach, rather than approaching a bank that, other than a bit of advertising they'll get out of it, largely has absolutely nothing to do with it. So I just don't think that's very fair on the local hire company. So Simon, if you're watching this, maybe you should give them a ring. That would just be my advice. So they're my thoughts, and like I say, I've just read this article this morning, so I'm just taking what I can from the paper. If you think different, if you think it is a good scheme, or it will work, then yeah, please leave your comments. If you agree with me, leave your comments as well, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.